What's up, guys? Ballin With Blizzy back with another video, and today I want to take a look at who could potentially be this year's Baker Mayfield, a guy that was drafted last year in the near 150s on Underdog Fantasy for best ball, and I think there's a guy hanging around right in that range this year who could potentially finish as a top 5 QB like Baker did last year when he finished as QB4 behind Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Joe Burrow. Let's jump on over to Underdog and take a look at where Baker is going right now. He's going 93.2, and we hear this every year in terms of best ball. Some of these guys, once you start getting into the pocket passer range and you get out of the Konami code, quarterbacks like Allen, Jackson, Daniels, and Hurts, who can do so much on the ground, Baker Mayfield is really, the third highest quarterback in terms of the pure statue pocket passers with Burrow, Mahomes, and then Mayfield. Baker Mayfield last year finished with 4,500 passing yards and 41 touchdowns to 16 interceptions. And I know it's easy to look back and say, yeah, Baker was going to do it all along. There were serious questions going into last year. The Bucs win total was at 7.5. Their projected points were bottom third in the NFL. So they were not projected to be a dynamic offense, but things came together. He had weapons. Bucky Irving blossomed into a real weapon out of the backfield. Mike Evans showed that he still had more in the tank. Chris Godwin was on a rampage before his injury. But even after the injury, Baker really held it together with Mike Evans, with Rashad White, with Jalen McMillan coming on, and then Cade Otton, who's not a super valuable weapon and a super dynamic pass catcher, but was good enough, and Baker elevated his game. So the guy I think this year matches a lot of the criteria that we found in Baker and is going right around the same ADP that Baker was last year is Michael Penix Jr., 144.1 on Underdog Fantasy right now. And I think we have a lot of similarities, starting with the win total, projected for 7.5. The point projections, implied totals in Vegas, very, very similar to where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last year were. And then you look at personnel, he has a strong supporting cast. Drake London, a physical, strong receiver, younger than Mike Evans. You got Bijan Robinson, a physical, strong, versatile running back who adds a ton in the passing game, even more than Bucky Irving, and is more dynamic runner than Bucky Irving is as well. Kyle Pitts, a lot of people are down on him. I'm down on him. But you can't say that he's much worse than Cade Otton. He's a guy who's out there. He's athletic. He can stretch the field up the seam. He can give you a lot of versatility depending on where you line him up. And then you got Darnell Mooney, who surprised a lot of people last year. Great route runner, downfield threat, put up really good numbers considering he wasn't projected to do nearly as well as he did. And then Ray McCloud even playing over 80% of the snaps because the Rams and Zach Robinson and that OC are very, very heavy in 11 personnel. So let's jump over to Caesars Sportsbook and look at where and this is what I was talking about right here. You can see on the win totals, you can see the Falcons are right in line at 7.5 with where the Bucs were last year, and actually projected to win more than 7.5 games. And you see that it's juiced minus 170. But let's go over to Michael Penix Jr. and take a look at what they are projecting him to do this year. And I really think, like I said, there's a lot of similarities when you talk about he has the supporting cast, he has the environment, he plays in the same division as Baker, a division that allowed Baker to torch them and throw for a lot of touchdowns. He plays in a dome as well. And so I think there's a lot of similarities. But when you come down here and we take a look at Michael Penix Jr., only projected for 3,400 yards, not too far off Baker last year. And then when you take a look at the touchdowns as well, I believe he's right in that 20 range. Yeah, 18.5. Right on cue with where Baker was last year. Michael Penix Jr., I really think he's going to blossom into his own in that second year in that Zach Robinson system. I think he's got a lot going for him. He's surrounded with a very, very strong supporting cast, an offense that I think is going to be explosive on the ground, through the air, and I really think you're going to see a lot of what you saw that made him a top 10 pick, surprisingly, out of Washington when he was surrounded by great talent, great receiving core, and he was really able to just, be a facilitator. The other thing, too, is Michael Penix Jr. is not thought of as an athlete, and neither was Baker Mayfield. But Baker Mayfield last year, he was able to give you a little bit on the ground. I think it was 378 yards, a career high, and 3 touchdowns. I think Michael Penix Jr., he's younger. He has that same type of athleticism. Doesn't overly rely on it like Baker doesn't, but he can do it. He can get out of the pocket, and he can beat you with his legs if that's what it calls for. So my prediction for this year, if there is going to be a Baker Mayfield, a guy going around that 150 range, that outside of the top 20 in QB ADP, and surprises a lot of people and finishes as a top 5 or top 10 quarterback. It's going to be Michael Penix Jr. in that Atlanta Falcons offense. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and like and subscribe.